Good to go. What's up, boss?
What's up, brother?
Sorry about that. Only a minute late.
It's alright. You're using a computer, right?
Yep.
Okay. Should be a settings button for an audio
Yep.
and echo cancellation.
I got audio. What do I?
There should be a thing for echo cancellation.
What was it? It's saying audio, echo cancellation on. Yep. Good.
Alright. Yes, I'm good. I don't have an echo. Yeah, if for some reason, if people use a computer, it's, I always have to have them take care of that, so otherwise, it was gonna feel like we were having a three-way conversation. So.
All good, man.
All right. Well, listen, man. I appreciate you agreeing to do this. I think we've exchanged messages before, but I appreciate your willingness to come on and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So, I just real quickly, so I have an idea. How much time do you have? Because I want to be mindful of your schedule.
An hour.
You said an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Say something again, because I don't know if your volume is low, because I wasn't able to hear you.
1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. All right. Now I can hear you. So it sounded like you were muffled. Okay. 1 hour is fine. That's good. So just really quickly, I don't go into these things with a list of topics. I just I do a brief intro, and then I ask a question, and then we just roll from there, and then we just have the conversation. So
Yeah.
that's how I roll. Now, do you prefer to go by Jonathan Parsons or Jonnie Parsons?
Doesn't matter. Johnny is what most people call me.
Okay, I'll go with Johnny. That works for me. All right, well, man, since you've got an hour, I'll go ahead and hit record. I don't know if you've used Riverside before, but I'll go ahead and hit record, and then we'll get going, unless you have any questions.
I got none.
Okay. I am privileged and I'm honored to have on a guest today that honestly I've been wanting to have on for a while now. He is an empowerment coach and he is a mindset and business mentor. And so for anyone that is unfamiliar with who I'm speaking with today, I want to introduce you to Jonnie Parsons. And so, Johnny, man, I got to thank you for your time and your willingness to have the conversation.
Yeah, man. My dad always told me never turn down an opportunity to grow. So, and you got some follow through on you too, because a lot of people just don't stick with it. If they hear a no or if they hear a yes, and then anyway, yeah, we like you said, we spoke in the past, and glad you reconnected.
Honestly, one of the things that I have realized in this season of my life is that I need solid brothers around me. I need brothers that are going to challenge me, that are going to inspire me, that are going to encourage me. And one of the things that I can't help but wonder is how it is that you got your start. Because in your bio, you talk about faith, family, focus, finances, and fitness. So I think all of those, we could probably spend an hour talking about each one of those. But I'm really curious what it was that got you into the space where you decided I'm going to be an empowerment coach.
Well, as far as becoming a coach, I mean, my past and my background is 12-step. So, I had a upbringing where I saw a lot of, people smoking marijuana. Took me to a point where I saw it being done by my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, everybody, and I thought it was normal, or I thought it was like a family tradition type deal. So I, from a young age, decided to mimic that behavior. And you know, like out of curiosity, like, oh wow, this is cool, you know, this is why they do it. You know, it makes you feel different. It makes you get out of yourself. So long story short, that, you know, led to from a very young age, a criminal background. You know, I was in my first juvenile program when I was 11 years old. Went to an outpatient. I tell this story because it's really funny. I actually told it the other day. So like, 11 years old, hanging out with the neighborhood kids. We were smoking weed. I ended up getting arrested for stealing a pair of shoes from the Rack Room Shoes at the Indian River Mall, which is Vero around here. My mom had a Tupperware. She was selling Tupperware. She had a booth at the mall. And I decided to go trade my old Reebok Classics in for some new ones. And they watched me do it, followed me out of the store, arrested me, and I went to this juvenile diversion program. And they drug tested me the first time. I failed because I smoked pot. So the next time I went, my friends were like, hey, if you put like a little bit of chlorine in your pee, you can keep smoking weed. And I'm like, oh wow, that's a good idea. So I took a Nick bag full of chlorine and went in there, and whenever I went to go take a drug test that next time, poured some chlorine in there, and like my pee started foaming, and I handed it to the drug counselor, just put it on her desk. It was like foaming, the whole room smelled like bleach, and she's like, if that's your pee, then we need to call an ambulance. So they saw in me that I was, trying to beat the system at 11 years old, and that kind of showed that maybe I had a problem. I couldn't stop. So long story short, I didn't stop. I ended up going in from an outpatient program to an inpatient program, and that's where I was introduced to 12-step at 11 years old. It was a 6-month juvenile level 6 program here in Port St. Lucie, and so I got to basically learn more about drugs, from a young age in a rehab program, and it took me to 12-step. So 12-step for me was like, I had to do it in the beginning. I had to get my paper signed, but I learned a lot, man, and obviously I didn't stay sober or stay clean in my younger years, but I had a kind of a seed planted from a young age, and I grew up just for the most part I was a good kid, man. I played sports, but I had at some point there was a line that was crossed for me, like even with sports, with certain things that I enjoyed, are like I would take it to the limit. There was a line that was crossed for me at some point where like there was no controlling myself or having a level of self-control. If I liked something that made me feel good, I wanted more of it. And obviously that led to drug addiction in high school. For the most part drinking, smoking pot, and led to cocaine in like the 10th, 11th grade years. And I ended up dropping out. Lived a few years of just dragging across the bottom, man. And people who saw me in high school. I played all the sports. I was hung out with everybody, and saw me just kind of hit bottom, man, and drag across the bottom. And 21 years old, I got clean, got my life together, and became I went to 12-step at 21 years old. I got clean with my dad, and ended up going to Narcotics Anonymous this time. Stayed clean. It was probably the best almost 6 years of my life. Got clean with my dad. My dad is a Vietnam vet Marine, and he smoked pot for 45 years after Vietnam, and he ended up getting clean a couple of years before me. And then him and I decided to we went to meetings together. We went to the county jail to bring a message in for 12-step meetings, and really good part of my life. I ended up becoming a firefighter paramedic. I started my own business in those years, lawn and landscape, handyman, auto detailing, pretty much anything I could do. People would say, hey, you know how to do wallpaper? And I'd say, yeah, and I'd go home and learn how to do wallpaper. Hey, you know how to do screen? Yeah, sure. Anything. I was hustling, from a young age, and did very well. Ended up getting back into, I got into firefighting. Got hired, and I'd say maybe 3 years in my firefighting career, I decided it was a good idea to start drinking again, which just led me down a deeper, darker path of drugs that I'd never done before. Opiates. Got to the point where I was using cocaine and opiates together, and got to the point where I wasn't even able to feel normal at work without having something. And I was taking the fentanyl off of the ambulance. I was taking, I was a paramedic, so I had access to the narcotics. And I would give, certain, not every single shift, but, there was some shifts where like, I'd give grandma just enough fentanyl when she broke her hip to make her feel good to get her to the hospital, and whatever was left, we were supposed to waste. And, I'm the medic in the back of the ambulance, so I just drew the fentanyl out and put water back in the vial and wasted the water when I got to the hospital. And I just knew how to manipulate. I knew how to get around the system. And long story short, man, is that it took me to a bottom quicker. I think there's a lot of people that have, addiction problems, whether it's food, whether it's, gambling, whether it's spending money, making money, like it's all the same thing. I think it's a mindset. And for me, like anything that made me feel good, I wanted more of. My drug of choice was more. And, I still kind of, I look back on those years and there was, like I said, I mean, it was like I knew that I was supposed to stop. I knew what I was doing was bad, but I just couldn't, because I would get like the thought in my mind. I would truly tell myself, I'm like, man, I'd wake up with a hangover. I'd wake up, with all my money gone and all the drugs that I use. And I'd say, man, I'm never doing that again. Never drinking again. And, 4 o'clock would roll around and, a beer started to sound like a good idea. And then obviously I tell people my dope man's phone number was in the bottom of my beer. So it just happened for me like that. Like alcohol was something that got me to where, I was ready to move on to extracurricular activities is what I used to call it. But so like, man, I hit bottom. I ended up losing my career. I went to the lowest possible point that I could possibly go. I lost everything. I had the white picket fence. I had the 4-bedroom house. I had the $70,000 platinum F-150. I had the lawn business. I had, a beautiful son with a woman that I wasn't married to, but his mother, and we were together 10 years. And we just had a nice life, man, that, you would get home from work on a Friday and have money in the bank and everything that you could possibly think of. But for me, like I had a void still, spiritual void. I didn't know it was a spiritual void at the time, but I was filling that void with things outside of myself that was just a temporary solution to an ongoing problem. And I look back on that now and I know that, but I didn't know it as I was going through it. And but like I said, lost everything. I was sleeping on my mom's couch. I got to the point where lost custody of my son. I ended up getting arrested again. Lost custody of my son while I was in jail. Signed over custody to his grandma adopted him. My son's mother's mom adopted him. And I think this was probably, I was maybe like 30 at that point. And, I tell people like that was like the age for me where I was like, I couldn't get it together, man. I was on, what's it called? They call it DCF here, but it's, Department of Children's and Families. So I was going through a process to try to gain custody of my son back. And man, I just could not pass drug tests. Like I would go in there with like fake pee, thinking like I was gonna get over on them. And this is like drug court, man. So there's like a deputy behind you watching you, and I'm still trying to pull fake pee out of my stomach and like squirt fake pee in it, and like I got caught. I could never. I was the worst at trying to get over on people. So like, so I just wasn't fit. I wasn't fit to be a parent. I couldn't stop doing drugs, and it took me to the bottom to where like, I never wanted to be at this point, but it took me to a bottom to where like my family wanted nothing to do with me. And they, I ended up that last time, man, I remember like I ran from the cops. They came to get me on a warrant because I violated my probation. They came to get me on a warrant. My family was all outside. I took off in the car just to go around the block because I had some drugs on me, tossed the drugs out, and then ended up pulling back up in the driveway. And, I guess when you run from the cops, they don't like that. So they pulled me out and they beat me. Like if you look at one of my mug shots, I got a big swollen goose egg on the side of my head. I got a black eye. And like my family was like happy to see me get beat up and go to jail because of like the pain and the suffering that I caused them, the path of destruction of just stealing from them, just treating everybody like crap. And, they were happy to see me go. And I remember that first like couple of weeks being in jail, like it was everybody else's fault. It was their fault why I was there. They were the reason why I used drugs. And, I feel like, now looking back on it, I feel like it was the devil that was inside of me. Like that, like every time I put a substance inside of my body and like it was in there for a period of time, like I was a different person. Like I would turn into this different person. Like I would like turn into a gambler. You know, like I said, when I would drink, I would want to do other drugs. Like it just turned me into somebody that wasn't the true me. So that last time in jail, man, I ended up finding God in jail. I went to the drug dorm, and you know, I'd been in 12 step, but like it was there was a gentleman that came in, kind of talked about God and the 12 steps from a faith-based approach. And it made sense to me, like, you know, like all the 12 steps, like going to an AA meeting, going to an NA meeting, tricked me into believing in God. They were all in a church. You know, I'm sitting in an NA meeting, looking around this room, there's like crosses on the wall. We're praying before and after. They're passing a basket around the room. You know, all the spiritual principles, not, you know, they're faith-based. The steps come from Matthew. And so like, I was like, man, why am I thinking like the great outdoors or good orderly direction is my higher power? And I realized when I was in jail that time that God was Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, was my higher power. And I just didn't know. Like I was never brought up Christian, never went to church. Like, but I feel like going through 12 step and working steps made me a better Christian because I already knew how to practice faith. I already knew how to practice trust. I already knew how to practice brotherly love. Like it was a very good precursor for me to be a Christian, you know, ideally. And so through this process, man, you know, I ended up getting out of jail. I like to say that, you know, everything was great after that and lived happily ever after, but it wasn't. You know, I got out. I met the woman who's my wife now. I went to a prison ministry because nobody would take me. My parents didn't want nothing to do with me. Went to a prison ministry, and I ended up meeting my wife on she's my girlfriend at the time. I met her on Snapchat, and through an accident. Like she's a Brazilian girl, she barely spoke English, and she, you know, had reached out or friended me on there because she thought I was another American guy named Jonathan's son that went to the church that she went to. So it was kind of like this accident, and how we found each other, and you know, I started like liking her pictures and stuff. She started liking mine. We ended up, you know, going out for, well, I say it was ice cream the first time we went out to Texas or Longhorn Steakhouse or Outback Steakhouse. I can't believe I got that wrong. She's gonna be mad at me. But she was, you know, like the first, like obviously, like I ended up, you know, I got with her, I moved in with her, everything was good. I stayed clean, but there was a period of time where like I started drinking again, and like this was like the first woman in my life that I could not manipulate. Like she would not put up with my shit. She drew a line and was like, look, if you want to live that life, I don't want to be a part of your life, you know. And she, you know, obviously I've had many ultimatums in my past, but you know, truly deep down inside, like I always tell people, like it's like the hangover the next day. I don't want to drink anymore. You know, truly deep down inside, I didn't want to live that life anymore. So she was like the first person in my life that like showed me that, like, you know, I tried to weasel my way back in like I did with everybody else in my life, my whole life, and manipulate my way back in, and she wouldn't put up with it, man. She just was a hard-nosed, you know, person that like she loved me, you know what I mean? But she wasn't putting up with no shit. And so like she gave me that ultimatum. I you know, I ended up moving out. She kicked me out. She called the cops on me. She kicked me out, and I ended up living in another halfway house. And you know, it was a period of time, man, where I was just trying to get, you know, she wouldn't answer the phone. She didn't want nothing to do with me, and I love this woman. You know, I really wanted to be with her, and she eventually, over a period of time, I started doing well. I was on my own in a halfway house. I started to be clean for a while, and she's like, look, you know, she's like, if you want to be with me, you got to marry me. You know, if you want to move back into my house, you got to marry me. And I'm like, you know, I was with her for a period of time to where, like, you know, American culture, we're like, listen, man, you gotta test drive the car before you buy it. Like, you know, you need some time before you want to marry a girl. And but you know, I was with her for about a year, and I remember going to the church, and the pastor, the Brazilian church we're at, he's like, you know, he asked me if I loved her, and you know, I said, yeah, I love her. She's a good Christian girl. I've been praying for that. You know, remember my pastor when I got out in the prison ministry said, if you want a good Christian woman, you got to be a good Christian man first. And I was working my way towards that. And you know, long story short is that, you know, I ended up marrying her. It'll be 7 years married this October. 8 years together. And, you know, I say that story because like our relationship when it started, like we came from like living in an efficiency apartment to, you know, today she's a successful business owner. And 7 years later, you know, we've got multiple businesses, you know, between, you know, the podcast studio, we've got, you know, personal brand stuff, we've got a consulting business. I'm partners in a land development company with a guy that I started 4 years ago, my partner Adam, and you know, just doing very well for ourselves. But we started from nothing, man, and you know, we support each other. We got through the hard times, and I guess to answer your question, you know, in so many minutes now, is that I became a coach through default. It was like, you know, I had gotten to a point where like people, especially being in my hometown, like saw the change in me because like I would post videos on social media. That's kind of where it started for me. Was like, I would say about 4 years ago, I started just posting a video every single day on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And before I knew it, man, just every day for like 6 months, like, you know, I had 12 to 15,000 followers on like all platforms. Just a positive message every day. It wasn't really Christian or it wasn't really 12-step, but it was just positive. Like, you know, I'm encouraging people to get through their day, you know, and telling them about situations that I went through, like good, bad, no matter what, man. I was transparent. I shared where I was at. And like, you know, even if I fell short or if I, you know, made a mistake or, you know, I think the authenticity, you know, the algorithm picked up on it and the people picked up on it. And that was like kind of the beginning of the, like getting my story out, because people were like, you know, texting me and emailing me and telling me like, hey man, your story helped me. Like I wanted to kill myself, but because I heard your message that day, like it helped me and you know, and I appreciate it. And so like, never thought anything of it, you know, I was growing and I'd say like maybe a year and a half ago, probably, I opened up YouTube and I was like, all those videos I had were like 20,000 views a piece. And it was like, you know, it was like 3 years of just letting them sit out on the internet. And I'm like, holy shit, like maybe there's something here, you know, like, and TikTok, I ended up like 16,000 followers. But it was like the consistency, I think. And then obviously the positive message. So like, you know, and people told me I had, you know, a story that was impactful, and like, you know, I had a whole lot of people I could help because I was a firefighter, I was addicted to drugs, you know, I had, you know, been in and out of jail, I had a positive, you know, business development was something that was, people were reaching out to me because they saw how fast I was able to build companies and businesses, and so there was like there was a wide niche there, right? You know, I ended up getting into the car scene, so like cars became a part of that, you know. And so it was more so like default, like I said, for as far as the empowerment coaching goes. And then I'd say probably close to 4 years ago now, I was probably the biggest I'd ever been in my life. You know, I was married to a Brazilian woman. She was feeding me rice and beans every day. And, you know, I had ended up, you know, somewhere close to 300 pounds. I remember I looked at the scale. I'd come back from Brazil visiting her family. And man, they were just like, in Brazil, you eat for breakfast, you take a nap, you eat lunch, you know, you sleep on the hammock and take a nap, and then you eat at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, coffee and bread, and then you know, wait for dinner and eat dinner. And it was just like, you know, we were there for about a month, man, and I had gained some serious weight, and I had gotten to a point where I was unhealthy. I was having trouble breathing. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and my wife was like sleeping on the couch because I was snoring so loud at night. And I remember going to the doctor. They checked my blood work. She told me all these things, and like told me I needed to get this CPAP machine. And I was just like fed up with like the modern medicine kind of approach of like, here, take this medicine to get your blood pressure down, and take this medicine to lower your cholesterol. And I left there kind of upset because it was this nurse practitioner, and she's telling me like, you know, to take these medications. I watched my dad for years take medicine to like keep him alive. You know what I mean? And that's like, so I left there upset, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to change my life. And I don't understand why they wouldn't tell you that. I don't understand why, like, when you go to a doctor, like, hey, let's try eating healthy for 6 months before we put you on, you know, metformin. Like, let's try let's try to get your cholesterol. Maybe just cut out the bacon. Let's see what happens there. But it was like, here, take this medicine, and here's this $4,000 machine that you're gonna sound like Darth Vader every night for your. I don't know what's worse, the snoring or the Darth Vader machine. But but so I made a choice to change, man, and that was 3 years ago. Close to 4. I ended up getting becoming a certified nutritionist, a certified bodybuilder specialist, and a certified personal trainer. And I had transformed my everything. My whole body composition, man. I lost like 100 pounds in like the first year. And since then I've kind of gained weight back, but now it's muscle and it's in different places, and I got probably the best shape I've ever been in my life. I'm training for this High Rocks event now that, like, man, it, like the level of, like, so just to be transparent here too, like younger years, like early 20s, I got diagnosed with COPD because of like the drugs that meth and smoking crack. I was smoking heroin, fentanyl. I was smoking fentanyl off of aluminum foil. So like, and packs and packs of Newports. You know what I mean? When I would go to the bar at night, I'd probably smoke 2 packs of Newports, wake up coughing blood the next morning. So like, I had some lung problems, and it's in my family to have lung problems. And now I probably have the best cardiovascular strength I've ever had in my life. I've slowly kind of stretched my lungs back out with COPD, scar tissue on the lungs. So. And people saw that, and they're like, Jesus, this guy just lost 100 pounds. He's jacked. He's got, I ended up, getting into the tattoo scene. I'm glad I waited till I was older to get tattoos, because now they have meaning, and like they're it's part of who I am. It's part, the artistic, creative side of me that came out over the years. And I think what has brought me into being more of a creator now, because, that, like I said, losing all that weight, people are, hey, how'd you do it? And I make good money doing what I do, so I never really wanted to be like a fitness coach or anything like that. But, when the phone keeps, you keep getting text messages and you keep getting people asking you, it's almost like I fell into it by default. And I had I got the certifications, but like the big thing for me is that, like, I don't go out promoting it. It's there. People know that, I'm willing to work with anybody that wants to help themselves. Like, I feel like God has provided these folks into my life at certain times, and like there's no coincidences, man. Like, there's a few people like I can count on one hand that I've worked with over the last couple of years that I've got to see them transform their lives, and only thing I did was just kind of guide them a little bit, and it's crazy because, like, it's not like I'm this guy that's out selling coaching programs, but now it's become something that obviously my time is valuable. So I if I'm gonna work with somebody, I do charge for it, and I think that when people pay, they pay attention, and I'm bringing value to folks, which is why a lot of people ask, and like I said, it's not like a big promotion thing. I mean, the fitness thing is now something I'm jumping into, because it's a passion of mine. I love it. Like, why wouldn't I tell you to come work out with me at the gym and then help you to reach your goals? Like, it's cool, man. Like, the money is one thing, but like my thing is like people coming back to me 2-3 years after they've completely changed their life, and they're like, Johnny, man, thank you. To see them grow with their family, to see them grow in their faith, to see them start reading the Bible with their wives. And from somebody, a guy that I was working with recently, he's like, oh man, I don't have Bibles in my house. And I was the one who handed him his first Bible, who's now completely built a relationship with God. He's just got baptized in the ocean a few months ago, and with his wife. And, it's really cool to see that. And I think through this path and through this journey, like you said, you got to be around solid men. That's what I've done, as I've surrounded myself with people who are lifting me up, who are, I've put myself in a position where, like, I'm in the center of the boat with a bunch of other godly men, multiple group chats, multiple men's groups. That helped me to become the best version of myself, and to continue to want to grow and be the best version of myself. I'm not stopping, man. I'm not giving up. There's no There's no quitting me. There's always like that, like what's next kind of deal. And, and over the few years, you know, I've kind of, the faith, family, focus, fitness, and finances, my 5 F's was my blueprint, right? That was what still on a daily basis is what I check myself on, and how I live my life on a daily, you know, is that, you know, I wake up in the morning, you know, even on a Saturday and Sunday, might be a little bit later on Saturday and Sunday, but God gets my first fruits. You know, I spend time with him, and before I pick my phone up, before I, you know, rush out the door, and I make sure that I have enough time during the week to do that, by waking up early and, go to the gym 5 days a week. I just have a routine, man. You know, I wrote a daily devotional. Daily devotionals were something that were big for me when I was in jail. So like that was, you know, when I started texting in one of the men's groups that I was in, and just like every day, whatever it was, whatever Bible verse I read, whatever God put on my heart, and with a little encouragement and a little prayer at the end of it. And I did this consistently, man. It was something I did every single day for like 6 months straight until this guy came to me and he's like, brother, why don't you put that in a book? And you know, it made, you know, I was posting it on Facebook, and I was like, all right, yeah, you know, like I put it in a book, and like my goal at the beginning of the whole thing was like, you know, I had taken all these journal entries for years and that I had done, and kind of compiled them and found like the best verses and the best encouraging, you know, takeaways from each one of those, and built, you know, the 365-day devotional. Like I said, you know, the goal for me was I want to put these things in jails and prisons. You know, I don't even want people to pay for them. I want people to have the same kind of foundation built in a rehabilitation facility, like I had. You know, I was reading Faith to Faith, I was reading Daily Bread, I was reading all these, but you know, my devotional is personalized. So like it says, like, I will, you know, take myself to the next level with God's help. You know, I will pray and help my family get over this with, you know, so it was personalized for me and my journey and my path. And then I'd say a few months after that, you know, another buddy of mine was, you know, saying, Johnny, why don't you, you know, for me, I read a paper Bible. I don't read a Bible out of my phone. I don't have an app. When I wake up in the morning, I'm reading the Bible, and I learned this in the ministry I was in, is that Bible is your weapon. Every man should know how to go to where he needs to go in the Bible. You need to know where Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are. You need to know, you know, that, you know, Exodus is in the front of the book. You need to know that James is in the back. You need to know where these things are. And same thing with the devotional, right? So it was brought to my attention, like, hey, Johnny, you know, when I'm doing my morning routine, like, I don't want to go look at the ebook. I want to look at a paper book. So, you know, this time last year, I'd say I ended up putting it in print. So we've got this here. Actually, there it is right here. And, you know, we can post a link for it too. Basically all the money that I do make from this, it goes right back into making more books, man. And I'm working with our local jail right now. There's through, jails and prisons now, they have, tablets. So there's no like actual paper books in jails and prisons anymore. Some of them might have it, but my goal is to get the PDF copies on these tablets across the nation, so that these guys have it at their fingertips, and you know, to be able to experience what I experience, is having a daily devotional to kind of start their day off, set the tone for them on a daily basis. I know I get messages from folks that are like, man, I needed to hear that today. It was exactly what I needed to hear. Same thing with the Bible, man. You can read the same verse, you know, a month from now, and it's going to mean something different to you, because of what you're going through or where you're at in your life. And so to fast forward to today, you know, like that strong foundation of men, you know, for the past 4 years, I have co-led a Bible study in my area, on Monday nights at 7 p.m. And, you know, there was kind of this message that the pastor was given a little while back that was like, you know, it's great to have that same group of guys. It's great to show up every week and kind of go do life with people, right? And, you know, we know each other's wives. We break bread with each other. And, but, you know, we want to grow the kingdom at the same time. So you know, he had mentioned that like him and his wife used to start a Bible study. They would kind of get a foundation, and any study and like, you know, any type of leadership role, your goal is to lift people up and bring them up and let them, you know, realize that they can lead a Bible study, or they can carry, you know, the message for the next week, or they can lead us in prayer. And so like, you know, that kind of message was brought to me, was like, hey, look, guys, you're good here. I'm going to go do something else now. And, you know, God has put this on my heart earlier this year. It was actually on my list of things to do in January, was to start a personal development community. And so a little over a month ago, and this is just how God works for me in my life, man, is it like whenever something's on my heart or whenever I'm thinking about something, man, he just starts putting people in my life. He just starts showing me that like, hey, this guy has a place to do it. You know, this guy wants to do it too. And then it's like, well, God, I know what you're telling me now, God. Like, he's pushing me with both hands into it. So like a little over a month ago, we set a date for what's called the Iron Legacy Collective here locally on the Treasure Coast. It's a personal development community that's faith-based. You know, our 5 pillars are faith, purpose, wealth, relationships, and body, right? Faith-based personal development community that's co-ed. So I stepped down from the Bible study and I decided to go full bore into this. We just had our first meeting last week. We had 5 speakers. 3 of the 5 speakers were guys that I coached or mentored over the last couple of years. And so it was cool to get them out of their comfort zone and get them on stage and get some cool content of them with a microphone in their hand and get them out of, you know, speaking and sharing their testimony and their story. And then 2 of the other guys are guys that I looked up to and I was coached or mentored by. So it was kind of just like this powerful night, man. That 74 people showed up, and this you know, Iron Legacy Collective. The goal with this is that to have an ongoing thing. So it's not just like this retreat or this seminar that happens like once a year and then you go back to doing what you were doing 5 days later. Like this is a weekly accountability group that we're now, you know, 54 people are members in this thing since last week. We're doing our first Zoom meeting tomorrow night. I've already got like an outline for like the next 8 weeks to kind of dive into these pillars. And, you know, in 4 weeks, we're going to have another in-person meeting where, you know, we're just all going to get together, hang out, and bring a little value, bring a little message. 8 weeks, we're going to do the mastermind again. So we're going to do some more speaking. Man, I don't know how that, like, God just keeps, you know, putting these ideas into, you know, the folks that are around me. And this thing already has this little character, this group that we've, you know, kind of developed has this character to it of like people, you know, just lifting people up, like, and we're talking like high influence, like the doers of the community. These are people who want the best, who are the best at what they do, who are leaders, and like, why wouldn't anybody want to live their life and spend their time with people like that? And it's really cool, man. It's really cool to see. It's really neat to be a part of it. And that, you know, all glory goes to God, because I could have never thought of anything like this on my own. I just walk on the path, man. Like, he's like reveals things to me, and like I don't sit back anymore and procrastinate. Like if it's on my heart to do, and God's, you know, and I see that like this is where I'm supposed to be at, this is my purpose, and I'm rolling with it, man. So, you know, that kind of happened. And then the podcast, you know, I have a podcast that started 8 months ago, a year ago. I was a guest on a few people's podcasts, and they were like, man, your story's great, like keep sharing it. And I was like, well, I want to hear other people's stories. So I started showcasing people's stories to like, enough about me, let me hear about you. And man, I think we're on like episode 47 in a year. YouTube channel exploded. We're monetized. We hit like 5,000 subscribers. I built this studio that I'm sitting in right now. In January, we opened the studio up, and God has just like blown the doors off this. I'm starting to get sponsorship deals. Like all this has been out of my own pocket, but now like it's starting to at least pay for itself, right? And who knows where it's gonna go? Like, it's amazing that, when you put God first and you follow the direction that he wants you to follow, like, that what's capable, what's possible. And that's kind of it in a nutshell, man. I mean, that now I'm helping people start podcasts. I'm helping, they want to be a podcast, host. And I'm like, with you, I want to help everybody. Like, we can do a pod swap. You can be on my podcast on the next one, so that we're filming cool content. That's what I've learned too, is you take the long form, you can clip it and make short form. And that's, I'm posting 6-7 times a day for the last, Instagram just told me I've been posting for 65 weeks straight. Grown in a little over a year, I grew about 70,000 followers more than what I had. And went viral a few times. And, just keep sharing my message, man, sharing other people's messages, showcasing their stories. And it's been great to build off of their audience, and them, their audience to build off of mine. But that's it, man. So same thing, like, people ask me to be a guest, like, I've been, I think you've been doing it for a while, right?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I started doing it on Facebook Live, and I was just having friends and family members just sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And then I started noticing Instagram, you could send messages to people, and so I started reaching out to certain guys, and where I started is not where I'm at right now. I have experienced a serious evolution since I did it, and I really honestly started getting serious about this maybe back in February was when I really started talking to more people. I really started honing in on this. I don't necessarily want to call it a craft, because I don't know if that's the right word to use, but
You enjoy
I
it.
started honing in. Yeah.
It's a passion
Yeah,
project.
Say that again.
It's a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a passion project, and honestly, it's a labor of love, because what I seek to do, this platform, is I seek to, like you just talked about, stories. I want to have the story component on the one hand, where I have people that, struggled with addiction, and they were in and out of rehabs, they were in and out of prisons, or they were thinking about suicide, cancer survivors, their abuse survivor, whatever it is. But then on the other hand, I have the educational piece, where I'm having conversations with doctors and therapists and coaches and counselors, so people can come to my page and they can hear the stories, but then they can also get sort of the educational piece. But yeah, I've been doing this, and it's funny you said, I just checked my stats the other day on my dashboard, and it said I've been posting for 48 weeks straight.
Yeah.
48 weeks straight, and it's like 6 or 7 times a day, but some people would say not to do that, which I think is crazy. Some people are like, don't post so much, like, only post 1 time a day.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have so many conversations. If I limited myself to posting 1 a day, it just, there's no way I'd be able to do that.
Well, you understand it too. You understand the consistency and what it takes, and a lot of folks, like, they want to start a podcast. You hear of, like, celebrities and people who have millions of followers that, like, they may have, post a few episodes, and they don't get nothing for views. Whereas, like, for me, like, I've noticed, like, the people you don't even think are going to get views end up being the ones that are, blowing up. And it's, like I said, it's not really about views. It's like, I want to showcase the guests. I want to get their message out. I want to get their story out, because that's powerful, man. When somebody's able to, especially with, like, line, discipline, and legacy, is like people who've been through, like, some sort of adversity in their life, and overcame it, or they're successful. And, like, you don't really get to hear somebody who's successful their way to the success, when they couldn't pay the light bill, when they had the struggles, when they, it was that, I think, builds rapport with folks and helps them learn how to trust and understand and find hope that, that in some way, shape, or form, they could probably do the same thing.
I think that's what my goal is my goal is to inspire hope, and that's what my page says, is where where stories and education need to inspire growth and evolution.
Right.
Because honestly, that's been my path. My path has been one of growth, evolution. I haven't experienced nearly as much as you have, but I've experienced some things that were traumatic in my own respect. And now this is one of those pay it forward where I want to make sure that other people can really find a safe place where they can come, they can find that hope, they can feel seen, they can feel heard, which I think is really incredible. Here, one question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
In everything that you just said to me, because you've talked with so many men, because you've worked with so many guys across all different backgrounds and with all different stories, is there one common theme or one common factor that all men seem to be struggling with? That if we really were to boil it down beyond the addiction, beyond the the behaviors, beyond the mindsets, beyond all of this, is there one thing that every man is chasing for, every man is longing for or needs, and this really can be the underlying cause of what we're experiencing?
Uh, I would say the most common theme that I've seen is that, you know, just knowing what to do but not following through with it. And that's in addiction, that's in, you know, trying to get clean, that's in like business and you know, people who have goals that they want to accomplish. It's like, man, I want to write a book, but you just don't, you know, you have to sit down and like create that path to it. Like, well, if I want to write a book, I need to sit down and give myself an hour every day and actually write, and, you know, kind of get into that creative mode or mindset. So I think it's just, and that's where like we're taught too as men, and really the human, you know, American culture is it like you go to school, and then when you're done with school, whether you're finished in high school or you're finished in college, it's like, all right, I'm done learning. But the reality is that we're intuitive beings, that we thrive off of knowledge. Like we thrive off of growing creatively. You know, whether it's something that I never thought I was such a creative person. You know, I enjoy art. Like I enjoy, you know, being creative when it comes to like making content and like how we're gonna, you know, produce things, and I just never knew I had it in me. Like I like music, like all these things, that whenever I actually took a step back and I was able to kind of start knocking out these little battles, these little, you know, goals of just like, I quit smoking, you know what I mean? Quit dipping cold turkey. Like, man, I can do this, and you know, going to the gym consistently. I remember I would go to the gym. You know, I've been going to the gym since I was in high school, and I liked working out. But I never was like, I would see like 2 abs, and I'd be eating good for like 2 months, and I was like, I'm good. You know, there was like just no follow through, no true consistency. And I realized that, you know, after you put 6 months together and you start putting like a year together, and you're like, wow, now I'm really starting to see like results, and my muscles are getting bigger, and like you can kind of see it. And then like as far as like growth of me as a person and my mind, body, and spirit, like I've been just super humble over the years. So like other people are the ones that are telling me like, Johnny, look what you just did. Like you just, you know, you built 2 companies with, you know, with, and I'm not taking all the credit, right? Like, but like with my leadership skills and kind of helping build teams and getting people to the point where, you know, God kind of gave me all these gifts. I just took it and ran with it. You know, I tell people all the time, like, you know, you hear stories of like, you know, biblical stories, or stories of people saying like, oh, you know, you got to walk down the path, this lit path. Well, I truly believe that, you know, we're all called for something better. We're all called for a purpose that may grow and change as we grow and change. But I think we are the light for the path. You have to be that light to light the path in front of you. And when you are, you know, pouring into yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself daily, and trying to be a better man and do those things that, you know, like holding doors for women, and treating women, you know, like a gift instead of a piece of meat, and, you know, all these things that we're taught as men from a young age, part of, you know, culture. And realizing what a real man prays, a real man takes care of his wife, a real man, you know, takes care of his children, spends times with his kids, and pours into them, and doesn't just get home and think that, hey, because there's money in the bank and you got a roof over your head, you just got to bow down to me and go wash dishes. Like, it don't work like that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, and it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to cry as a man. It's okay to express yourself. And I think being intimate, I call it intimacy. Like, most people would think intimacy is like being intimate with a woman or being intimate sexually or something like that. But I think being real and sitting down with another man and being as real as, and not no surface BS where you're like, oh, well, I feel, sad. No, like we got to get deep down, figure out what emotions you're feeling, why you're feeling them, process that, go back to your childhood. Man, I'm telling you, there's this. I went to this event, this Ryan Zofe event, and he's one of my mentors now in my life, and he can just see in people, like they'll start talking, and he'll be like, "Who messed you up? Was it your mom or your dad?" And they'll be like, "Oh, it was my dad," and like this lady was like in her 50s, and like she had changed her name because of her father. Like her father was in construction, she never saw him when he was younger, she never got to spend a whole bunch of time with him, and she had this like vendetta against him from being a child. That is, the guy is dead now. You know what I mean? She's in her 50s and she still has this thing against her dad, and it's like, you got to let that go. You got to process these things, and we don't realize we're carrying it subconsciously from our childhood. That like to really get deep down and understand yourself as a man, and understand that why you do certain things and why you carry yourself the way you carry yourself, because you built this subconscious kind of being from watching your family, and that goes with everything. Like how you think about money, how you think about your success, how you think about having a limited mindset to like oh, I can't afford that, and it's like, well, yeah, you'll never be able to afford it if you say you can't, if you got like this mindset of like, I'm gonna buy the Porsche, like, I'll figure out how to pay for it, like there's like, and I did, and I will continue to have that mindset of like, you just go, you just do it, and it's not that you're being like reckless. You're definitely, I'm consulting and consoling. I've gotten to a point now with my relationship with God where like I don't even have to stop and like think about stuff anymore too heavy, right? If I got to stop and think about it to where like I'm like contemplating, then 9 times out of 10 it's my will and not God's will. If I got to sit back and be like, hey, should I go get this Ferrari, and like, well, no, Johnny, because you need to pay your mortgage and you need to, like, not limiting your mindset, but like, it's not the smartest thing. I could probably figure it out, but then, we're not going out to dinner every other weekend. So God has kind of, I tell people like when I look up in the sky in the morning, I say, we just got this thing, man. Me and God got this relationship where we just understand each other. And it's not, I'm not saying like I'm not following biblical principles, or like, oh, your relationship with God isn't what you make of it. It's, what the Bible says. And it's like, hey, guess what? Whatever you say doesn't matter, because at the end of this life, guess who's going to be standing at the pearly gates face to face with Jesus? Just me and him. You're not going to be there. They're not going to be there. So at the end of every single day, like, I have to make it right with God, or I have to, it's a relationship, man. It's relationship. It takes communication. Relationship takes work from, and I'm putting in the effort on a daily basis to know that, I'm in good standing, and know that, I'm blessed, and know that I'm walking on the path and in the purpose that I'm supposed to be walking in. And not a whole lot of people can say that, that I've met or can stand on that confidently. So, and that's it too. There's a difference between people who are just saying it and people who are talking the talk and walking the walk, and the level of that we're in now in society, you can call BS on these people that you see,
Yeah. There's a phrase that I heard. Those who say they can and those who say they can't are both right. If I say I can do something, then I'm right. If I say I can't do something, I'm also right. And it's which voice are we going to live in? It's
100%.
Which reality, which mindset are we wanting to live in? And that's one of the things that I struggled with for so many years, is I lived in that I can't mentality. And I even allowed other voices and their criticism and their opinions to hinder me, even when it comes to doing what I'm doing right now. I had someone tell me that this was cringe. I had someone tell me that no one would sit down and talk with me. I had someone tell me that no one would listen to anything that I had to say. I had someone look me in the eye and tell me that they were embarrassed by what I was doing. And this is all the same person. This isn't multiple voices. This is one person that said all of this over a 3-4 month period of time. And I almost let that voice stop me from what I'm doing. I almost let it silence me. I almost catered to it. And it's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And it's been such a rewarding experience, is especially if you feel like God is calling you to do something. He's calling you to do it for a specific reason. He's giving you that passion. He's giving you those resources. And like you said, I am even noticing that God is bringing people around me. He's causing connections, and He will do it. And one of the things that you said earlier that I really liked is that it's not any glory to you. It's not any credit to you. Does God give you gifts? Does He give you talents? Does He give you vision? Does He give you dreams? Does He give you the ability to do this? 100%. But at the end of the day, like you said, you're going to stand in front of Him and He's going to ask you, what did you do with me? Did you live your life for me? And there is something about doing that authentically. There's something about doing that genuinely that I think we all need to understand, especially as men, when there are so many men that aren't willing to live authentically. They're not willing to live genuinely. Ask a man to take a gun and protect his wife. If someone comes into the home and tries to take her out, he will without hesitation take up and protect his wife. Ask a man to take up that same gun and protect his children. If somebody tries to come in and insult his children or hurt his children, he will do it. But ask a man to feel a feeling. Ask a man to go inward and to truly wrestle with himself. And for some reason, men just don't know how to do that. We were taught to suppress it. We were taught to hide it. We were taught to conceal it. And I'm at the point right now where I think a lot of people are. It's just like, you realize you can't hide anymore. You realize that you need to live your life out in the open. And someone said to me one day, Stephen, you're very good at hiding in the open. And when he said that to me, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I'm convinced people can do even what you and I are doing. And even though they have thousands of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers, they may be doing nothing more than hiding in the open. And I think social media is really shining a spotlight on the fact that authenticity and genuineness is paramount. Like, it's what people want. People are tired of the BS. People are tired of fluff. People are tired.
That's been our culture, man. That's been, like, you look at the corruptness, the over the, I mean, even in the Indian days and the days that before, there in Egyptian, there was corruption then. There was like, people are like, yeah, man, this guy's saying one thing and doing another. And granted, we are humans, right? Like, I've fallen short. I still fall short. Like, I cuss like a sailor sometimes. I swear to God, when I go to work, like, I just start throwing F-bombs, man. I don't know if it's something about being in an environment with other men or in construction, like, and I don't want to do that. Like, I want to speak better. I want to sound better. I want to, I dropped out in the 11th grade, so I don't very like articulate. And, I lost a lot of brain cells from overdosing a few times. And I also speak like broken English at home with my wife. And because of her, she's Brazilian. So, like, I kind of have to speak in a way that, like, to help her understand me better. And sometimes, like, man, I don't speak real good, or, and I would, tell myself I'm not a good speaker. But like you said, man, just being true, being yourself, and messing up and stuttering and people like that, man. People, they want to see that. Guess what? Like, I didn't always, some folks are like, oh man, you pray good. When you pray, it sounds so good. I'm like, man, you should have heard me in the beginning. Like, now I just realize that all I'm doing is talking to God, and prayer is simple, not simple, but it's easy to articulate what I want to say or what I want to get out. Because of practice, because I'm swinging the bat, more than other folks. You know what I mean? So it's not that I'm better than anybody. I might be a little better off because of my path and the journey that I've been on. I've been on it a little longer than some folks. So that's, it's powerful, man.
I think there's one one thing that I want to say as we wrap the conversation up, and I actually had a conversation with a buddy of mine that I went to college with, and there is this practice in Japanese culture, and it's called kintsugi. And what it is if something breaks, if it's a jar, if it's a glass, if it's a cup, whatever it may be, and it breaks and it shatters into various different pieces, instead of taking the pieces and throwing them away and discarding them, what they do is they take all the broken pieces, they reform them into the original shape of what it was, but they will take gold and almost like using it as mortar, they will take gold and they will use it to piece everything back together, but also highlight the cracks. So even though it can't be used for its original purpose, it still has form, it still has function. And even listening to what you say, I think that's what we are witnessing. It's what is being witnessed in my life is are we have learned to hide our flaws and our imperfections, and yet that is something that God has never called us to do. He is perfectly okay with our flaws. He is perfectly okay with our weaknesses. He is perfectly okay with our failures, and he draws near to a heart that is sincere towards him and a heart that is honest towards him, and he values that more than anything else. And I think that that's really what we need. We need more men that are willing to step up.
I love that.
Be honest with themselves. Be honest with their wives. Be honest with their kids. Be honest with their brothers. Have a group of men around them that are going to hold their feet to the fire. They're going to hold their feet to the flame. They're going to go 10 toes deep with them, and they're really going to keep them accountable. And that goes back full circle with what we said at the beginning, where iron sharpens iron.
100.
And that's I'm here for that. I'm here for that iron sharpens iron. And I appreciate guys like you that have gone through the storm. You've weathered the storm. You've come out on the other side. You're paying it forward. You're giving back. You're helping other guys. You're creating a lasting impact. And so I am inspired by someone like you, and I am challenged and I am encouraged by you. And listening to everything that you said, it's like imagine what would happen if we had a world full of men that were willing to do that were willing to, they weren't delivered from the storm, they weren't delivered from the fire, but they were delivered through it.
Yeah.
And now that they've come out on the other side, they're paying it back, and they're lifting other people up. And man, I applaud you and I commend you.
Thank you, man.
I'm grateful for guys like you that are willing to really reach back and help other people. And man, I can't tell you how grateful I am for you being able to have this conversation. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your willingness to have the conversation. You could have said no. You could have ignored me. You could have ghosted. You could have chose not to respond to my message, but you chose to do it. You chose to show up. And if there's one other thing that I could say, give any piece of advice to any man, I would say two things. Show up and be available. That's it. Show up, be available, and you chose to show up tonight. You chose to make yourself available, and I think that's what a lot of men are needing to do in our culture. And so, Jonnie, man, I gotta thank you for your time and your conversation. And man, I'm gonna continue to stand on the sidelines and applaud what you're doing and support what you're doing. And for anyone that is unfamiliar with you, what is your Instagram handle?
Jonnie Parsons Official. It's JONNIE, and usually if you type that in, it's one of the top 5 or so. And then same thing for YouTube, same thing for TikTok. I can give you the link if you want to post it, but disciplineandlegacy.com is where my 3 books are at. The devotional, we just started a sock line. We're going for, like I said, with the fitness program now, we're starting to do an active wear line. So I went with socks to start off with, just because being in construction and being in the active area, whenever, working out and stuff like that, man, I spend a lot of money on socks and underwear that are, very expensive, that aren't high quality. So I decided that, instead of repping the Nike socks that get holes in them, I'm gonna make my own brand. So that's also on disciplineandlegacy.com. The Iron Legacy Collective is on disciplineandlegacy.com. That's where you can also find the podcast. If anybody wants to be a guest on the podcast, is on disciplineandlegacy.com on the main page. And yeah, so go check us out, man. And I appreciate you for what you're doing, man. And that's what it's all about. Is like, it's not like you can give a man a fish he can eat for a day, but you can teach a man how to fish he can eat for the rest of his life. So we want to empower the folks that we come in contact with. We don't want to go to people and say, oh, say the prayer of salvation, and then like walk away and say, you know what, I had 400 people I said the prayer of salvation with today. Yes, we want to plant seeds, but at the same time, we have to take people alongside us. And the Bible says, go make disciples. It says, go into the world, make disciples. Disciple means to teach and to learn. There's two meanings there. So, just like, let's say I'm pouring into somebody, or I'm coaching them, I get just as much, if not more, from them, from those situations. But we want to multiply impact. We don't want to impact the person in front of us. We want that person to impact another person. And that's what it's all about. And that's what folks did with me. They got me off of the bench and into that mindset and that mode. And I took it and ran with it. And we all have it. All of us have it inside of us. It's just a matter of flipping that switch and rolling and not letting things bother you, not worrying about what people are thinking, and do what it is that you're supposed to do on this earth, which is, like you said, be purposeful, mighty men of God, and multiply impact.
I like that. I'm going to encourage people to do that, multiply impact. And so when this conversation drops, I'll provide all of the links that Jonnie referenced. And I would encourage you, go on Instagram, look him up, Jonnie Parsons Official, and check out what he's doing.
We're live right now.
Follow.
We got.
Well, listen, that is absolutely.
I did it for like the last couple of minutes,
awesome.
but and then I will promote this for you as well. We'll try to get as much of your people out to your podcast as well. And where are you located?
Right now I'm in Virginia.
That's right. You said you were up north.
This is my temporary. Yeah, I'm in an airplane 30,000 feet in a holding pattern right now, just waiting for the place where the plane is going to actually land.
Gotcha.
So where I end up landing, that I'm not sure of, but right now this is where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, when you come to Florida, I like to do the in-person podcast, but we'll get you on my podcast, hear your story. But we can do one on Riverside too. I've done 3 or 4 now on Riverside with folks. One lady was in Norway, another lady was in Paris, and it's really cool. And now I've learned that I got a guy that kind of helps me with the studio, and I've learned how to kind of get on here and make this thing work without too much help.
Yeah, well, listen, man, I am here for all of it, so
Yeah.
sign me up. I've already prepared my yes to what God asks me to do, so He has my yes, I'm available, so whatever that entails, that's what I'm going to do. And so, again, man, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you as a brother,
Yeah.
I appreciate you as a friend, and I'm grateful to have met you, another brother in Christ. And I'm going to continue to stand and with you and watch what God does through you.
Thank you, man. Definitely appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. I was grateful to have you on. All right. That's the conversation. I tried being true to your hour. So you said you had an hour.
You're good, brother. My wife hasn't started texting me yet, so we're good. But I'm gonna get home and get showered, and thanks again for the opportunity. And yeah, let me know when it's out. I'll help you promote it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, one final thing. You may see, like on my page, you may see a couple of reels that I throw up. So anything I throw up, I'll tag you in. But keep an eye out for that. But yeah, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, man. I'll collab, man. Just tell me to collab.
Okay.
All right,
brother.
stay blessed, man.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Yes, sir.
Have a good night.
You too, man.
That's it for another episode of being live on Stephen Goodwin's podcast. You guys stay blessed. Have a good night. Test, test, 1, 2. Test, test, 1, 2. Test, test, test. Test, test. Test, test, 1, 2.